up against organized enemies. Okay? You all know that you don't go out as one person to fight the British Army when it's marching down the road towards Lexington. The militia was called out, organized resistance. The militias of all those local communities showed up and fought the British all the way back to Boston. It wasn't just one man alone trying to fight that. Organization wins wars. That's why we organize armies and navies and Marine Corps and Coast Guards and Air Forces, because we know that it takes an organized effort to win a war against an organized foe that has a military force, right? Well, we believe in our educational army as a method of educating the electorate and the elected so that they can make proper choices, because if they're ignorant, they can't be free. The enemies of freedom want you to be ignorant, and they want you to be deceived. Go back to the Bible and it says, if you know the truth will make you free. Well, then the opposite of that is true. If you don't know the truth, then you will be deceived into bondage. And these people we're up against are serious deceivers. You read that book, The Great Deception, about the European Union, 600 pages of somewhat dry reading, then you will get the idea that, oh my goodness, the Council on Foreign Relations planned the European Union, helped bring it about. Even the Marshall Plan was part and parcel of it. And you'll understand that. The JBS alone has spent the time, energy, and money to carry the messages that it carries through an outreach program of literally millions of pieces of literature, coordinated distributions in the millions, DVD production, distribution, internet blasts for millions, appearances by speakers at events, radio, TV, etc. Not to mention distribution and personal follow-up to state legislators and members of the U.S. House of Representatives and the U.S. Senate. We're the one organization that's doing that on many issues. And that's part of what I wanted to get across tonight is we're known for not being a single issue organization. Are we for the right to keep and bear arms? You bet. When the NRA was telling you it was all about duck hunting and pheasant hunting, we were telling you no. The right to keep and bear arms is the liberty teeth of the people to stop tyrannical government if need be. And as a last resort, hopefully we never get there. We were telling you what it really was, what the founders put the Second Amendment in there for. It wasn't because, oh, we love those tasty deer. Okay? That wasn't it. So we're about that. But and there's a lot of great single issue organizations out there. Some of them are out there to protect the right to keep and bear arms. But a single issue organization cannot win this war we're engaged in. And it's a war. Let me give you one example. All right. The John Birch Society for at least 50 years has been one of the opponents of abortion on demand. And we put out way, way long ago, maybe the first film on that in America. So we've been engaged in that effort for a long time. Now we tell our members, you only work on agenda items that you agree with us. If you're morally different than us on a topic, you don't work on it. We don't want you to. But we've been engaged in that. And there are others that are fighting Planned Parenthood and so on and trying to stop abortion by demand in this country. But let's say that one of those groups that's been fighting tooth and nail finally wins and they get rid of Roe versus Wade and it's illegal for abortion in America. Will that win save America? It's a good thing. We want to have it happen. We want to do it. We want to keep fighting it. But it's only one issue. Because that doesn't stop the UN from being empowered eventually to be a world government and us become a cog in its government wheel. It doesn't stop the federal government from creating a nationalized police force out of the Department of Homeland Security with all the new powers gifted to it through the Patriot Act. right? It doesn't stop the dynamics of Common Core for the federal nationalization of education, and on and on and on. So all of these other issues that we've got to be paying attention to need to be addressed. It doesn't stop a constitutional convention from being convened every month to amend our Constitution right out of existence into something completely unrecognizable. So that's why we are known for paying attention to many, many different issues. Now, I know I've just hammered you into the ground with this tonight. I've got 4 pages of accomplishments in the JBS. And I'm not going to go over it because it's just a huge long list. But I've had people say to me before, what have you guys ever accomplished? And I say, well, we've got Bill Clinton impeached in the House of Representatives. Oh, you did not? Oh, yes, we did. The Washington Post, in fact, dislikes the John Birch Society that published in 1998 that it was the leadership of the John Birch Society that got him impeached in the House. He wasn't convicted in the Senate because we didn't have enough people helping us. But he was convicted, he was impeached in the House.
Is that going to happen with Obama?
Oh, I'd like that, but I don't know if we'll be much better off with Biden. But the JBS.
Where are the microphones, by the way?
I'm just skipping pages here, pages. Well, see, I brought up the free trade area of the Americas. It was the John Birch Society that single-handedly killed that. We tried to, at the same time, stop the Central American Free Trade Agreement, CAFTA, and we came to within 1 vote of that. 1 vote. We lost by 1 vote in the House. And at first it was killed. And then President Bush and everybody got on board on twisting arms and making promises, and they finally got a reversal, and there was the 1 vote they needed to pass it, so CAFTA passed. And I remember talking to my congressman right then. On a Saturday, we met him at his home, Congressman Chris Cannon, and I invited 8 JBS members, but word got out and 40 showed up. And then some of them were not Birchers, and they wanted to talk about some other things other than CAFTA too. And they wanted to yell at the congressman, which didn't help. And that was really sad. But because we believe in applied discourse. It doesn't do any good to yell at each other. It certainly doesn't win friends or influence people. But anyway, we spent 3 or 4 hours at Congressman Chris Cannon's house. And when we went home, we knew that he still intended to vote for CAFTA. And he called me that Monday night, that following Monday night, about 8 o'clock, so it was 10 o'clock Washington, D.C. time. And I said, Chris, what are you calling for so late? And he says, well, I want to talk to you about CAFTA again. I says, why? We talked about it for 3 hours on Saturday. He says, well, I just don't think it's as sinister as you think it is. And I says, well, Chris, JBS members aren't going to agree with you. Have you read the preamble? Just the preamble to it. It says that the signatory nations to this agreement agreed to supply the impetus for the 34 nations of this hemisphere to integrate. And he says, well, that's nothing evil. And I said, no, it is. We're going to integrate 34 nations with the United States into a new European Union style integration. He says, oh no, Bliss, all this is talking about is integrating our highways and our phone systems and our communications, nothing like you're saying. And I said, no, that's not true, Chris. And Birchers and communities all over your district know that's not true. They've read the agreement, they know where it's headed. And it even talks about Codex Alimentarius, the food laws of the UN becoming law for the United States. I said, no, this is crazy. Say no to this, Chris, or people in all your communities are going to know that you've done the wrong thing and you're going to be out on your keister. He says, no, that's not going to happen. I says, well, look, you took an oath of office and you've got a fiduciary commitment to the people to protect our Constitution and our independence. And you're going to have to answer to your maker for this if you vote for this. And you're going to have to answer to the electorate. You just can't do it. He says, oh, Bliss, those are terrible threats. I said, they're not threats. I'm making observations to you. JBS is not a political party. We're not going to go out and campaign against you as an organization. But our members belong to political parties, and they're free to campaign all they want. And do you think that they're not gonna be your opponent? Trust me, they're gonna go nuts on this. And half of them are delegates of some sort or another, a county delegate, or they're in a precinct chairmanship, or whatever, and you're gonna get slaughtered. And when he lost the election, one of my friends called him and said, "So why did you lose the election?" And Chris says, "Oh, those damn virtues." So, I guess that's what his opinion was, is that it was our fault. Well, okay, if any of you want that 4 pages of
Get it.
that, I can email it to you. I'll be happy to email it to you. Now, here's another 2 pages of notes I wanted to tell you, but we're out of time. I've kept you long enough. But I wanted to give you just an idea of some of the things we're known for, rifles. And talking from a list and everything maybe isn't enough from my heart. I can tell you this, I love the John Birch Society. My coordinators know that if there's one way you want to get my hackles up and get me in your face, it's to denigrate the John Birch Society in front of me, or my friends that are members. That's when I have a hard time holding on to my temper. And it's a failing, and I'm working on it. I'm really trying to not be that way. But I know that a lot of the best people I've ever met have been in the John Birch Society, the salt of the earth. They're people that love and care about this country and want to restore constitutional order so we can maintain freedom. They know about the $70 trillion debt of, promises that our government has made to the future generation, and that we've got to stop this craziness. And so organization is what to do. Now, I've talked about the UN a lot tonight. I didn't even get into all the rest of this, the money mayhem, the global warming, how we've been detailing why that's not good, Common Core, and a million other things here. But I don't want to leave without a solution. Just one solution for this. Because if we've been working for all this time against the UN, what's the solution there? Well, here it is.
We leave.
H.R. 75. This is the American Sovereignty Restoration Act of 2013. Now, this bill has been put forward as H.R. 1146 for years and years by former Congressman Ron Paul. Now, this bill is put forward by Congressman Braun, B-R-O-U-N, of Georgia.
Look him up in your thing right now. Open that up and look for Georgia.
Yeah, look him up in your Freedom Index.
Right now, look it up.
In Georgia.
I get letters from
Brown.
emails.
Yeah,
Right here.
in your Freedom Index. You can look him up
Go
and
to
see
Georgia.
what he does.
He's a good man.
Good man.
And look for Braun. Look at this voting record.
This bill, when passed, removes the United States of America from membership of the United Nations. 100%. He's 100%.
I signed the petition. It came to me, so.
Good. This removes us from membership of the United Nations, and it removes us from participation in UN activities and actions and organizations.
Hallelujah.
Now, in 1945, Congress passed the UN Participation Act. This repeals that act. And we are no longer a member of any of those organizations I was showing you earlier. All of these hundreds of organizations that are soaking us with billions. And it also means that we're going to stop going to war all the time for them. Now, my son, my only son, is a lieutenant in the United States Army, posted at Schofield Army Base right now. He spent 6 years in the U.S. Air Force and was deployed to Kuwait, and he was deployed to Iraq, over by the capital there in Baghdad at Balad Air Force Base. I know he suffered 110 missile and mortar attacks. It was because I was looking at his documents that he had from the Air Force, and it actually had a citation to cite him for having survived 110 missile and mortar attacks.
Wow.
And no wonder he had post-traumatic stress syndrome. And couldn't keep a job for the first 2 years he got back. You know, no wonder. But he's a patriot, loves this country. And he started going to college to get his college degree, and what do you think? He went to the ROTC, and now he's a lieutenant in the U.S. Army. From the Air Force to the Army,
Yeah.
But these wars, when he left for Iraq, he phoned me up and he says, Dad, I know you're against this war. This was the second Iraq war that we were put into, even though Iraq didn't do anything at 9/11. They weren't allied in any way with Al-Qaeda. And so he says, I know you're against this war. I says, well, it's never been declared as a war by Congress, so it's illegal. It's unconstitutional. It's a presidential war. That's unconstitutional. It's a usurpation of power. It's a congressional abdication of constitutional power that was assigned to it. So yes, I'm against it. But that's not the only reason why. We have no cause to be there. You will find that there are no missiles. There are no atomic bombs over there. These weapons of mass destruction will not be used against the Air Force. They won't be used against our Army. If they have them, they'll use them. But they'll never use them because they don't have them. So we're making war. Why? To build the New World Order, just like the first time when you were 8 years old and we attacked them. And George Herbert Walker Bush told us every night that we were going to build a New World Order and empower the United Nations. And he says, well, I knew you didn't like it, but I'm going anyway. And I said, son, you have to go. You're a soldier. And I want you to go and do your best to take care of the men assigned to you, to do your duties. But I don't want you to go over there and kill someone so that you can brag about it. If you have to kill somebody to defend yourself or your men, then that's self-defense. You can come home and hold your head up. But don't go over there and look for an opportunity to kill somebody just so that you can be a big tough soldier. Please. Then you'll have to live with that. And you're going to come home and have mental illness problems. Don't do it. Don't want to ruin it. I says, but I'm making a promise to you right now. I am going to stay home, and I am going to talk to Congress, and I'm going to talk to the President every week while you're gone and ask them to bring you home and bring all the soldiers home from these illegal, unconstitutional deployments overseas. Because we were a neutral power, not a warlike power. We were America that everyone loved because we weren't sticking our nose in everybody else's business with our military, sticking a bayonet in them. I says, you know what they say in Somalia now? You know, oh, Americans fatten you up so they can kill you. Remember our big fight, Black Hawk Down and Mogadishu? So he says, well, good, Dad, because you know, Dad, all we can do is say, yes, sir. It's up to you civilians to make the decisions of whether we go to war or not. Well, about a year passed, and when he came home, I asked him at dinner. I got to see him for 2 hours. That was it. Then he had to go back to his base. I said, well, okay, you've been to war again. Tell me what's the one thing you'll never forget about this war? What's the one thing you'll never forget? And he says, well, Dad, that's really easy to remember that they were always bringing in these truckloads of wounded soldiers from IED blasts. And we'd put them on airplanes to send them out to hospitals in Kuwait or Japan or Korea or wherever they were going. And one day when those trucks came up and I ran over to the truck and we each picked up a man to carry him to the airplane, and I picked up a man and his body felt like my age, like a young, man in his 20s, strong and healthy and everything, but he had no face. He had no eyes, he had no ears, the cotton balls where his eyes were supposed to be. He had no lips, he had no nose, and he couldn't speak to me. And he says, and I carried him across the target. And he said, all I can say is, I appreciate your sacrifice. I appreciate your sacrifice. And he said that all the way to the plane and put him in. And he said, and I don't know who he is, but I will never forget him as long as I live. And I said, well, son, that's the sacrifice we ask our military to make. And we should never ask them to make a sacrifice like that, except to protect the United States of America and our Constitution and our freedom and our lives here. keep us from invasion. I said, did Iraq ever invade the United States? Never did. Did Somalia? Did Haiti? Did Bosnia? Did Vietnam? Did Korea? Did they ever threaten to? They never did. But these are UN wars. These are UN wars. And more. Anyway, I thank you tonight for listening to me. We have a choice. We can either stick with the Constitution of the United States of America and enforce this inspired document upon those that we elect, that they will obey it, presidents, congressmen, and all the judges, or we can end up under the United Nations Charter. This is limited government. This is unlimited government. We're either going to be free or we're going to be in bondage. We're either going to be happy and prosperous or we're going to be unhappy and poor. And that's the choice before us. And the best way to win in this war is to organize. And we offer you membership in the John Birch Society if you're not a member. If you are a member, we offer you our thanks because you're sacrificing. How many of you have heard the price of freedom? You know, freedom isn't free. The price of freedom is eternal vigilance. That's so true. The price of freedom isn't just dying on the battlefield. It's doing the work here at home to keep your freedom, to hold the elected people's feet to the fire and the bureaucrats, the constitutional fire, to chain them down with the chains of the Constitution. You can't do that unless you know it. Now, Dale's got these here tonight, these 6 DVD series.